So I'm in the container. It is time to try and find the wiring that I need for my E36. Yes, fun stuff. So what pile is it in? That's all seats. That looks like BRZ FRS stuff. This is a BMW headliner. That's definitely a Subaru motor. That's E36. This is E36 stuff. That's an E36 bumper. Oop, I see some wires. That's definitely one of the things that I need. So, but you see how it's all wrapped up in there? I gotta dig through here. Let's see if I can put you guys down somewhere. That's gonna be it for you guys. Cool. So there is my battery cable that will go to the back of the car and connect to the battery. And it even comes with a new grommet so that I won't destroy this battery cable. So the other wire that I need is actually out of an engine harness. Just leave that there for now. And I had bought a bulk package of stuff from a guy. So like there's an extra valve cover, a bunch of power steering stuff. I don't know, there's a motor harness around here somewhere. Because that was one of the things that I was excited about. Oh, I think I see it. Cool, so there's the motor harness. And this one's actually already falling out of the plastic case, so that's great. So all I need from this bundle of wires is this red wire, and that is going to go through this grommet and this one. I actually might take both of these. I really might. All right, let me try and disconnect some of this stuff and see, because I think there's more than just an engine harness here. I'm just gonna bring all this stuff inside. Hang on. All right, so I just brought those into the garage. That's the replacement, and I'm just gonna go through this to see what is, or if there is anything different. I know that that is an OBD2 harness, and this is definitely an OBD1 harness. Okay, yes. So it is a little bit different. Okay, so all these red and whites, these are all power wires, right? These are coming into here and feeding these relays. You can see the red and whites down there. If I get you my light, you see there's all a bunch of red and whites down there. See? So this one has a red wire going to the starter wire, a red wire coming to the fuse block, or fuse box rather. And then over on this one, so these two would go to the power block, which I didn't even show on this side. So this side, you've got 1, 2, right? And those two go to the fuse block. 1, 2, right? But where these are slightly different, this guy splits from this one big guy into this smaller and big guy. So that's where those two come from. The starter and the fuse box all get power from this one. And then this one is going to the rest of the power. It's splitting off into feeding the rest of the engine harness that needs power. So it is a little different because if I replace this one wire, I technically need to replace both of these from this harness, because one of these goes to the fuse block, or fuse box rather, and then one of them goes to the starter. But then over here, these relays are also, or at least one of the relays is receiving power from that same power wire, which on that harness it's not. So it's definitely a little different, but I believe I can make it work. And then the other thing, let's see. And then the other thing is, what is this wire? So in reality, I just need to take this wire out and take this wire out, cut off anything that is attached to them. So like cut off this little guy, and then remove the two thicker wires, run both of the thicker wires through here. So one of them is going to replace this one, and one of them is going to replace this one. But then on this side, instead of having just this one wire come through, I'm going to have both of them come through. And then I guess for this wire, I'm just going to cut it back to here And then I have a bunch of good power wire that I will just extend that with. So that'll be that. Just slight differences as usual between the OBD1 and the OBD2. So I'm going to get to pulling this one apart first and then this one second. Okay, so I got the starter wire and the fuse box wire out of the donor harness. So what I did was come in here, and inside the heat shrink, I snipped the wire that went to this relay. So when this is attached, hang on, bear with me. The plastic is going to go over the rubber and keep that safe. And then on the other end, so then I pulled both the big and medium wire through this grommet. So that was this side. And then on this side, they're the only two wires in this grommet. And I believe it is the same as that harness. So I'm not going to remove them from this. But on this harness, there was a spare wire, this long one right here, that went in here and was attached to here on the bottom. And again, same thing. I just removed the sheathing all the way up to where it connects. And then I am going to feed the heat shrink and sheathing back over this to cover that and protect that side as well. So those are the wires that I need to fix that. So that I need to do the same thing that I just did with those wires on this wire. And actually, since I'm just donating that harness and this harness this battery wire is no good, I don't even need to use the aftermarket wiring that I had to make this one longer or fix like the burnt and crusty part of it. I can just take another one of these power wires. I'll just take this one and I'll cut it back here because this one only has that very minor burnt portion up there. And the only reason I'm replacing it is because, again, it is attached to the battery. So rather than just throw this whole thing away, I'm going to cut up this little one to use it to fix that other burnt portion. So now rather than having aftermarket wiring to do engine bay stuff, blah, 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 whatever, it'll all be fixing my problem with factory wiring. So I think that'll be pretty cool. I want to do the wiring install first before I install the alternator, because obviously without that, there's no point in that because it just has the potential to catch on fire. So I'm going to quit yapping and get to taking those burnt wires out of my OBD1 harness. This is the part that's probably going to suck for today because Okay, yes, this one's super easy to get to. It's right here. However, the starter one obviously is under the intake manifold. So that's going to be a little interesting to get to, but I'm confident I can do it. And yeah, I'm going to shut up and get to it. So what I was thinking actually might not even work. So I said that I was going to replace this single wire that goes to 2 wires with just 2 wires. And if you look at this, 1 wire comes through, and then on the other side there is all of these extra wires, right? Couple grounds, couple power wires, my 20 pin connector. Again, not really stuff that I need, but it's stuff that's in the harness that makes it work with the chassis. So here's my issue. This wire that I just removed, well, when you look, so this is the ECU side. So this sits in here like this. This guy sits in here like that. This guy sits in here like that. And then over on this side, the big one sits in here. And then the little one is for the 2 power wires. Well, the 20 pin connector and the secondary air pump and those extra wires that are in the second one on the other harness are all in the main one on this one. So unfortunately, what I wanted to do isn't going to work, and what I need to do is attach this big wire to one side, feed it into the harness. Well, actually, make it easier for myself. I need to just remove that big wire that is split into 2 for this side, and I need to remake it out of these because I'm not going to be able to just put that back together without doing some weird stuff with this harness case. And I don't want to have to do weird stuff with the harness case. So unfortunately, we're just gonna have to try to remake that wire, which again, not a big deal, just a little more work than I was planning on doing. All right, that wasn't fun, but we got it done. Worst part was getting to the nut on the starter and then trying to remove this out of the grommet that has wires in it without potentially damaging any of the wires. So I basically tried to slide it up here as far as I could so that when I was pulling the wire through, I was pulling it through on the shielded part versus just the open exposed wires. So didn't do any damage to that harness, and now I need to recreate this.
I only cut it just for ease of removal. It was obviously much easier to slide it through the grommet with just this than trying to clean this up enough to pull it through. So I just cut it, pulled this part through. So what I need to do is make a 1 to 2 connection, and the fat wire is going to go to the starter and the thinner wire is going to go to the fuse box. So here's my fatter wire and here is my thinner wire, and from factory, so this side, so this is the smaller grommet, so it actually goes like this from factory. So what I essentially need to do is cut, well, let's see how long. Actually, this works out perfect because this wire was extended here along with the splice being here. But since I have this long big wire and this other smaller wire, I can make this one long enough so that it all jives without having to add another extension, if that makes sense. Right? So I basically need to measure out the length here, line that up with this, and then I need to cut this. I'll give it a little bit extra. And I need to cut that there. And then I need to put a single joint on it. And then I'll cut this wire to length. Combine the two ends over here and put the two ends into the single joint. Obviously with heat shrink so that it's all sealed up and good. But time to do some wiring. So I just made my first cut, and as I did, I had the thought that it probably makes more sense to build the two-sided end first and then make the final connection in the car, because I can just slide it in and out without having to worry about fitting all of this through here, because it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world, because it's supposed to be a weatherproof seal. So I think that's the new plan. Make the double-sided connection first and then make the final connection in the car. So we are all good to go, just like factory. So it's not all back together. It's not quite ready to run yet. I still have not done the alternator, and I still have not fixed the wiring for my gauges. So I've got 3 very simple wires that just need minor connections. But as far as my engine harness, it is back together. I don't have the hardware on yet. The hardware is still right here. But the starter wire goes down and is on the starter peg. The fuse box wire comes over and is on the fuse box. And then over on this side, this guy with its little bit of extra length reaches over here, no problem. And if I can get the O2 sensor wire out of the way, is on the fuse block, power distribution block. So power wise, the only thing left for me to do is run this wire from that power distribution block back to the battery. Obviously, I still have to deal with that. I did get... Did I bring it in? Could have swore I brought it in here with me. I did get a smaller diameter heat shielding for some of the wiring, so I will be able to cover these O2 sensor wires. I still want to pull the downpipe off and rewrap the downpipe because the heat wrap got damaged. And then I have a plate coming in to make a heat shield for the bottom half of the coil cover, so I can keep the part where it says BMW M Power, and I can just cut off this bottom part where it's prone to melt and replace it with a piece of metal that will shield the coils and wires from the heat. So that's gonna do it for today. So I don't think I'll have time to build it today, but I got my metal for the heat shield. That's always the best part of getting sheets of metal.